Hi and hello watch fans, and welcome to the new audio article series by The Real Time Show. In this series, we will read new and original content out loud for you, so you can consume more watch media than ever before without having to read it yourself. For those of you that prefer to read, or would like to check the sources referenced in this audio article, or Audicle as we've nicknamed them, you can find the text and relevant links in the show notes on the website at www.therealtime.show. This article has been written by David Vaucher, our resident provocateur. Let us know what you think of David's work by contacting him either directly on Instagram or by sending me a message at rob@therealtime.show. You can find David on Instagram at DAVAUCHER. This will be the first of many Audicles available on therealtime.show as we look to diversify our content strategy and make it easier for you to enjoy and learn about the industry when on the go. This week's Audicle is entitled, Luxury Fashion Watches Have More in Common with Real Watches Than You Might Think. Why do they not get the same respect? Fashion watch. In the watch community, this description means instant death for a model. In about a second, those two words convey the complete dismissal of, and often contempt for, a watch that might have been years in the making. The ease with which this term is lobbed around is but one of so many examples of reflexive groupthink in our hobby, and the view that there are fashion watches and non-fashion watches is, to be direct, as misguided as the put-down itself. Let's start with something that Tim Mosso of Watchbox has said before. Brands don't love you back. Though we, as members of the watch community, like to think that our passion somehow gives our opinions more weight within brands, the hard truth is that money talks. Enthusiasm is important, but let's not forget that cash flow is what keeps the products coming. Make no mistake, fashion watches have been, and still are, big business. Consider that in 2007, Montblanc was selling around 100,000 watches per year, accounting for about 15% of the company's revenue. In 2016, Daniel Wellington had revenues of $230 million. MVMT made over $71 million in 2017 and was subsequently purchased by the Movado Group for $100 million in 2018. Over the first half of 2022, ending in June, Hermès watch division posted €262 million in sales, an admittedly small part of the roughly €5.5 billion total, but quite impressive when you learn that this represented over 55% growth for the division from the same period of 2021. In short, if you dismiss fashion watches as trivial, you're not taking into account the financial weight that this category has in the market. Now, would I personally wear a Daniel Wellington or an MVMT watch? No, but as a very successful salesman once told me, never let your inhibitions become those of the customer. I can't argue with millions of dollars worth of success, and if I were offered to run a brand with MVMT's revenues, I think I could probably set my own preferences aside and do what I had to do. But I would absolutely love to wear a watch from the well-known legacy luxury brands such as Chanel, Montblanc, Louis Vuitton, among several others that I'll mention later. To put some structure around my arguments that not only should you not dismiss such models as fashion watches, but also that we should stop using that term entirely in our community, I'll speak to several aspects of a watch. 1. Its design. 2. Its technical attributes. 3. Its overall quality. And 4. The heritage of its brand. Design. To talk about the design of a fashion watch is to lay bare more of the numerous inconsistencies that play out in watch community debates. When we dismiss a watch as a fashion watch, we're making two criticisms at once. First, that the watch is designed to look good for a brief moment in time, in keeping with a trend, after which point it will no longer be needed. And second, because of the fleeting nature of the watch's looks, it doesn't have to be well made, so it must inherently be a cheap, disposable object. To call a watch a fashion watch is to deny it the quality of timelessness that, ironically, is so important when talking about mechanical timekeepers. This is in contrast to a real watch, which supposedly looks good and functions in perpetuity. When you think about it though, aren't all watches fashion watches, bought for the purpose of looking a certain way? Do we not think of James Bond just a little bit before buying an Omega Seamaster 300M? Do we not imagine ourselves as rakish gentlemen when we're at JLC trying on Reversos? What about the Nautilus and the Royal Oak? Two watches from two-thirds of the Holy Trinity, the highest echelon of watchmaking legitimacy, are nowadays more hyped-up fashion accessories to flex with than signifiers of horological appreciation. Granted, those are much nicer watches than the Daniel Wellington, but the only insight there is that you get what you pay for. I mean, yeah, of course. Also, the wave of vintage re-editions that has lasted over a decade now proves no matter how much watch enthusiasts love to complain about stale designs, that's ultimately what they end up buying. When a large luxury house enters the watch space, unless it is willing to take a giant gamble up front on something like an in-house movement, what else does it have to offer besides its iconic designs and overall design DNA? When you look at an Hermes Clipper or a Slim or an H08, if you know the brand's design language at all, you don't even need to see the name on the dial to know, without a doubt, that it's from the French house. Going back a few years, Ralph Lauren's watch offerings were instantly derided by the watch community. But when I see the sporting watch with elm burlwood dial, I'm immediately transported mentally to the universe Mr. Lauren created. Speaking personally, Ralph Lauren watches look nothing at all, like other watches on the market, and the company deserves credit for that. So if you complain a watch design is boring while dismissing new models from luxury houses as boring, I would gently suggest a bit more research, and I'll say that for sheer fun, I'll take a Clipper over a Black Bay any day of the week. Technical attributes. Moving on to the technical attributes, luxury houses are denied credibility in watchmaking because supposedly all they do is charge premium prices for using their designs as wrapping for very run-of-the-mill movements. This does not take into account the current state of the largest maisons. Hermes owns 25% of Vaucher manufacture, which makes movements for Richard Mille and Parmigiani Fleurier. Montblanc bought the Minerva manufacture outright in 2007. Chanel owns a minority stake in Canisi Movements, which supplies Tudor and, for even more horological legitimacy, minority stakes in Bell & Ross, F. Pigeon, and Romain Gaultier. Louis Vuitton owns La Fabrique du Temps. Even Ralph Lauren, which, given its broad price points, absolutely could have slapped a polo player on watches from Hong Kong and decided up front to swing for the fences. Ralph Lauren, the man, is an avid watch collector and wanted to do the project correctly, so he had the company partner with the Richemont Group for its initial watch offerings. More recently, the Vintage 67 is straight up excellent and powered by a Le Jouperet movement. If you haven't listened to our episode focusing on that particular watch, head back to episode 15 and give it a listen. To overlook these brands is to overlook the Chanel Monsieur or Louis Vuitton's Geneva Seal watches. All that does is limit your horizons and subsequently your potential enjoyment of this hobby. Do these brands also happen to make somewhat generic models and charge a premium for them? Sure, but making otherwise anonymous goods and cranking up the profit margin with the application of a logo is par for the course in the luxury game generally. And let's not pretend that every model from every Swiss watchmaker is absolutely fire, or that something like a Rolex 3235, despite its reliability, is a complicated movement in the strictest watchmaking sense. Overall quality and heritage of the brand. This brings us to the related pillars 3 and 4 of my arguments, the overall quality of a luxury house's watches and their heritage as a watchmaking entity. Despite the fact that luxury brands do have signature, interesting designs and have signaled their intent to take watchmaking seriously by throwing millions of dollars into their capabilities, there's still this stigma attached to them that because they haven't been in the business as long as, say, Patek Philippe, they aren't to be taken seriously. Not even less seriously, mind you, but not seriously at all. Here we see yet more frustrating examples of the contradictions and unfounded arguments that I come across in so many watch circles. Do we really think that Hermes or Louis Vuitton, arguably the world's two most illustrious and valuable luxury houses, have anything to gain at all by releasing cheap, low-quality watches, or cheap anything for that matter? Perfumes are a great analogy here. Though neither brand started as a perfumier, they put out top-quality fragrances. This allowed them to bring more people into the brand without cheapening it for the customers of their higher-priced items. Also, what's with this concept of the age of a watchmaker? Basically, its heritage being in any way representative of the quality of the watch. Groupe Force started in 2004, but Montblanc started selling in 1997. I guess Groupe Force must be less of a watchmaker than Montblanc then. Philippe Dufour was born in 1948, but the first Hermes watch dates all the way back to 1928. Yes, I'm being facetious, but it's hard to rationalize the reality that Ming and Norqain are generally applauded for their watches, or at least not derided, whereas the Chanel Monsieur disappears from view immediately after its release. With all due respect to the work that's gone into both of those upstart watch companies, do we really think that companies like Chanel, Louis Vuitton and Ralph Lauren, with their established design codes and massive war chests, have less to offer? Concluding thoughts and some glimmers of hope. In a positive instance of the watch community's inconsistent thinking, the tides may be turning. The investments that brands have made to be taken seriously appear to be paying off. Hermès made a huge impression with its H08. The jeweler Piaget continues to impress with its commitment to ultra-thin watches, and I gather that every iteration of Bulgari's Octo Finissimo is well received. I'll say that I started to really have fun in this hobby when I let go of any preconceived notions I started with and considered everything on their individual merit. It doesn't mean that I love everything that I come across, but it does mean that I'm free and delighted to get lost down any rabbit hole that appears in front of me on Chrono24. In fact, I encourage you to run a search there for your currently most disliked maker of luxury fashion watches. You might surprise yourself, and because so many people share the same feelings, you can find some really fun, really well-made examples for fractions of what they would have cost new. Believe it or not, you might also find these highly competitive with watches at similar price points from legitimate watch brands. If you'll trust me and commit to a few minutes of this simple exercise, you may come to have a new appreciation for an aspect of watchmaking you might have thus far overlooked. You might even find yourself reevaluating some of the existing pieces in your collection. Ultimately, the more we can encourage new products, the better. The more positivity we can spread when established companies take a risk, the more chances we have of getting products down the line that we do like. Plus, if someone who doesn't care for the watches gets into the hobby because they originally loved Chanel's perfumes, that's a win for everyone. And if you repeat that enough times, the hobby can and will grow meaningfully. As for me, I'm going to keep getting lost in the fashion watch rabbit hole, and will report back once I've made a choice among the many options. I hope that by that time, I will never have to hear those two words again.